So my name is Paulo. So my project is called Small Test Suite Generation, and so this is about generate test with genetic algorithms. So first I will show how it works, then I will explain what happening behind. So here, for instance, I have a small piece of code of the class stack that I create. That is why it has a S in the front. So I just design a push and pop method. So if you, sorry. Yeah, if you print in, so you get the last value that you put in the stack, right? So here first I will delete the test method I created before to test my stuff. So I have here. So yeah. Okay, I will try to do that. Yeah, I never changed the font, I think. Where is it? Okay. Okay. Yeah, maybe like that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, it's working. Okay, so I generate a test using genetic algorithms. So if I execute this code, the test that I generate will go to the class. So like this. If you can see here in the methods, we got like a test generated using my tool, using genetic algorithm. So if I run the test, all the tests will pass because it's the way I generate the assertion. So the assertion generated satisfy all the last state of the execution of the generated code. So so when you generate tests, you can go, for instance, to the class stack. Where is it? Yeah. Then if you change, for instance, a method, so this is the way that the real stack is implemented, by the way. So, and then you run the test, yeah, then you may see that the test fails because the implementation changed and it makes the test fails. So that is how it works, the test generation. And if you want to know how it's behind, and I have some time, so first we generate a random population of tests. So for instance, I have here a test case of my model. So there is no statements yet. So for instance, I may add randomly different kind of statements. So for instance, I added a message. I add a message, so the top was the message. Since I need to add a message at the top, I need a receiver, so my tool recursively creates first a receiver. But to create the receiver, I need to pass another argument, so my tool also creates the other argument, and so on. And you can generate different kind of statements, for instance, a literal, or a factory message, for instance. Yeah. And then you may also generate a bunch of statements in a glance. So you can generate a lot of the statements, and then with that I create the first generation of the population. So I got randomly test created. Then to improve the coverage, because the goal is to have the test code that cover most of the source code that you are testing. We have to have, for instance, two steps. That is a mutation step. So you can also delete a statement. Okay, so yeah, you can delete the statements. You may add the statements, you may change the statements. So for instance, a change the statement will be change the receiver, or change the parameter, or change also the method name. Then when you mutate it, also the next step is do crossover. So you have two tests generated, and then you crossover this test, hoping that the next generation have more coverage than the previous one, and so on, iteratively until you got good coverage. So we can see here the evolution of the coverage between generations. So I think is here somewhere. Yeah, it's here. You can see here the evolution of the coverage between generations. So after the fourth generation, the coverage remains after 18. So that is how it works. If you want to know more about the third generation, you can talk with me in the coffee breaks. And also, I would like to say that it's not my work alone. It's for all these people. And I want to thank to Land Research for the cooperation for this tool. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mariano Martinez Peck. I work as a software engineer for the development of BS Smalltalk at Instantiations, and I will talk now about our improvements for supporting Git. So this started because some customers were telling us that they would really appreciate if BS Smalltalk could be more Git-friendly based on their specific setup and team distribution. So we listened to them. We listen to the community. So rather than starting our own path, we follow what the community is doing. So we started with Tunnel, which we believe is the first step. And Makeup was the first company which gave us a first draft. So thank you to them. We followed that lead. And then finally, Esteban Marignolo joined us on this effort. So what I will show is the result of all that. Okay? Showtime. So here I have a BS Smalltalk running. What? I think I need to mirror. Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, so here I have a BS Smalltalk running. You will see I will open the application. This is expected. Okay, so I will open the application manager where you normally have all your applications. I will make imports, and I will import the application from Tunnel. I will pick up this Tunnel GitHub place where all this is Tunnel code. It will show me all the packages that are in that repository, so I can cherry pick which ones to load. It will tell me to choose the basic, the previous version. It automatically shows me the prerequisites. It automatically fills me up with the Git cache commit. And then it goes the same for the second application that I am loading, which, as you can see, it automatically computes the prerequisites that I have for that app. And again, it automatically fills me up with the Git commit. So if I now, I think I need to refresh the browser, and I see these two apps. Those two were just loaded from Tunnel, so I can modify something. So I will do a simple modification. I will remove another method, and I will add a new, I lost the mouse, sorry. And I will add a new method. Okay, so I have something on the background. Okay, sorry. Okay, in any way, I think you already did it. No. Okay, maybe if you have time, I show it. Otherwise, it's fine. I will do it quickly. So I will just make one modification. I will import again from Tunnel. I think I exaggerated with the size of the fonts. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Now I will do one simple modification because I am running out of time. So I will just, I don't know, modify this. It's enough. And then what I will do is I will export this to tunnel. I will select the apps that I want to export. In this case, are the two examples that I have in my previous repo. I will export. It will allow me to pick up where. So I'm using the same repo from where I imported. And once that is done, I can go to the file system and see that there was one change. I can diff, and you can see the change I did. And that's basically all. All the demos are there. And this is our first step, which is basically export all our maps and apps to tunnel and then read them back. So this is the first step on our journey for improving Git. And if you want to give it a try, let me know and I will be happy to show you. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is David Gorišek. I'm going to present you a source tracking system for Faro, which is a source code versioning system similar to Store and Envy. It was developed by myself originally for Dolphin Smalltalk, and it was shipped with Dolphin Smalltalk 6.0. And now the version for Faro was developed by my colleague Rok Križnik and by myself. So it's a versioning system that runs on Dolphin, Faro, and VS Smalltalk. So you can develop either in Dolphin or in Faro. GUI looks the same. The source code is identical. So you can use the identical source code, which is in Dolphin, can be in UTF-8 with string literals in UTF-8 and CRLF line delimiters, and you can load this in Faro and it will work fine. All the source code is stored in object database, so you don't need any external libraries. The system can import files from Faro, VisualWorks, Dolphin, whatever. We have import code that imports package, so package file directly into repository. And then you can load partially from repository and get it running on your system. So you have local repository for local development, and it can also act as HTTP server so that other people can upload projects into your local repository. Or it can run headless on a server so that you can have a central dedicated server for the team or for public use. So the unit of versioning is method. So there are no files. Each method gets new version on every change. And classes, packages, and projects are versioned when they are published into a repository. So you can compare code between image and any particular project, class, or package version, and you can manage change sets. So once you get the changes, you can export changes. You can either store change sets locally to have them for later, or you can export them to central repository to some other server. So I'll do a demo. Where's the image? Here. Okay, so I've created new local repository and created new project. I selected the Gopher packages for that. And so I select the project. So I create new edition. Now I'm adding the packages. So first I need to version the packages. So I versioned the... Why is it not responding? Okay. So I versioned the Gopher core. So now I versioned the GUI. So I can enter the STS name. This is stored in the package manifest. because in Dolphin, for instance, you can have package names that contain spaces. You cannot have this in Faro. So you have each package can have a name which is representing the package inside the repository. It doesn't have to be the same as in Faro. So I'm versioning, I'm giving it version 1, blessing development, okay. I can also enter version comment, so like test, okay. And then I'm adding package to the project. So this was the UI. Okay, so now I have a project with packages. I'll version that project. Again, I have all the version number, developer, and so on. So now it's versioned. So now later when I start a clean image, I can just open Project Edition browser and load the project from the repository. Oh, okay. So I can just load it. Okay, I won't do this now. And then if I change code, so I'll just go here. Let's do a change. So you can see each version gets a descriptor and it's stored so that when I browse, I can see who changed a method. So if I do a change here, I have the change again. And now I can do compare with image. And I get the changes. Okay, so something's wrong. Didn't detect the change. Well, we mostly use it in scenario when you first load the code from the package, and then so it has some bugs still. But anyway, that's the way how you can work with Faro and Dolphin at the same time on Windows and on Linux. So if anybody is interested, this is like kind of open source. I mean, we don't have time to manage the community, but we can give it to anybody. It uses Omnibase and some basic Smalltalk code for the source code management. So if anybody is using Dolphin, can try it out. Okay.
So, hello, my name is Cyril Ferlico. I'm a research and development engineer at INRIA in the AirMod team. So I'm working on the spec project, for example, or on the Moose project for Faro, or also on Faro itself. And I will today present 3 side projects that I have. So I will go a little fast because I will present 3 of them. So the first one is Tiny Logger. So in a previous company I worked at some point we really needed a logger, and the projects to do that in Faro were not very stable at that point. So we created one for an urgent release, and then after I released it on its own project. So this is the project. So with Tiny Logger, what you can do is that you can add your own some loggers to default ones. So for example, I can say that I want to log on a file named progress.log. I want also to log on the stdout, and I want to log in a transcript. And once I had executed it, I can just send record to strings or objects, and I will have I will clean. And then I will have my log here, or I can also find it in my process.log file. Oh, I forgot to clean it before, but here this is the entry at this hour. And I can also, for example, execute blocks of code and record things inside. And I see that I have some indentations and basic things. So here I use the default instance, but you can also, because usually when you deploy an application, you want to have one log file, etc. But at some point, you can also want to use a different logger. Like, for example, when you are running tests, you don't want to use the one instance. So in that case, you can create a new instance and use a dynamic variable to say that during the execution of a block, you will use a new logger. So here I create one on another that will only record on a file. And when I execute my block, it will not be in the transcript, but it will be on this other file. So this is the first project. If you are interested, there is a document. The project is on my GitHub, and I have a user documentation and also developer documentation if you want to add your own loggers. Like, for example, if you want to log sending using HTTP request, etc. So this is the first project. The second one is a project called Git Bridge. So in Faro now we have a Git client called Iceberg, and since I am working a lot with C-side or web applications, etc., what I want is to be able to store my CSS files and JavaScript files, etc., in the GitHub repository, and to still be able to manage them from Faro. So I created the project Git Bridge. So it has a class Git Bridge, and all you have to do is to subclass it in your project. And behind, what the subclass of the bridge will do is that it will look at Iceberg at the project containing the package, and like that you will be able to have get information from Iceberg about your repository. And you can ask to your bridge things like, for example, the root directory of your Git local clone. You can ask the source directory. You can also ask the closest version, so the closest tag that is on your repository. And I use that, for example, when I deploy CSAT demo to not hardcode versions, but like that I can say, okay, I can display that the demo is for the version 1.0.0 without having to hardcode it. Or you can ask, for example, to have the branch name and the latest tag. When you are in development, it's like that. You give information to the users. This demo is not a stable release, but it's from this version. And you can have also some utilities like opening from Faro the local clone. So it's not a lot of code, but at least like that, all my projects share this code. And if Iceberg evolve in the future, I will be able to change it only at one place. So this project also has documentation on my GitHub repository. And the last project I want to show you is a flag browser. So in Faro, you can have when you want to let information, like for example, I don't have the time to finish a feature, and I want to add to-do information. We can use the flag method that will do nothing and that can take a symbol as parameter, and like that you can browse the symbols later. But here I will integrate in Faro 8 a flag browser where you can see all the flags in your system. So by flag, or you can browse by package or by class.
So, hi, I'm Felix Madrid. I'm working by Adesso. And well, how to understand an old desktop application is the question that a newcomer asks himself when he starts in a new project. And try to develop or continue to develop a system that is a mature system. Someone can call it legacy system, but it's still on development and evolving in some way. And I found this metaphor also good because he has to fight, the new developer has to fight against windmills. Normally, you don't have much documentation, you don't have maybe any technical documentation, and you don't know the business rules or the actors at all. So yes, I am, or I am always in this situation, and I did not feel that alone. So normally we have in Smalltalk a lot of tools that help us, but they are not always available. For example, I work sometime in Visualworks, and we miss Moose, or I miss Moose a lot. And well, Moose had a lot of tools and things. These meta models and all that stuff. It's really nice. And I ask myself, and then I ask myself, I normally draw my own diagrams in paper. And I ask myself, how could I make these diagrams? They are normally class diagrams, but without much specification, that I get these for free. And I ask myself, okay, which are the key points in the business applications? In business applications, persistence is more or less the 90% of what you need to know, because all persistence objects are the key things. The transient objects, they are there and you can debug maybe, but at least they are not important thing. And that's why I figured out to port some of these things from Moose in Visualworks and to generate from Glorp, where you already have this information, which objects, which associations they have, and which things or which other objects are related, and all this database model, but also the object model, which is more important. And from this stuff, I just generate, well, that was not there. I just generate a new ML diagram, and that's this whole stuff. The left one is store, that's the class model, and the right stuff is a whole database. How store is written in the database. So if you look, you can, I have a mouse, but I'm not using it. So you know here that the store package has some connections and whatever. Maybe this view is too much. If you compare, you have also the database there with indexes and foreign keys and all the stuff. So probably you would like to make some subset of this stuff. And you can make more or less a selection. So Moose already have some Moose queries, which I not fully support, but I'm more or less trying to get it to work. And if you evaluate that, then you have a subset of this model, and that's more or less the relationships with store package. You are in Visualworks, or you are in your Smalltalk. You could do that very easily in Faro, and you make a double click, and you get some browser or whatever. I didn't have time to make funny interactions. Here you can make all kind of things, which more or less I didn't do, but they are possible. And what else? So then, I also had the way, because I didn't have the possibility to show in Visualworks, I also have the MSA export running. So if I execute this one and I open Faro, I can already load what I'm doing there, and I also have in Faro this store model. So that's more or less a good way to people who want to analyze Visualworks code and can import in Faro, because I think the last version we had in Visualworks was very, very, very old. But we can analyze Visualworks code more or less easily to get it exported. So from these things, I think there are much things that we can reuse or better use or expand. But they are all coming from my needs. So they are my needs as developer that have driven this stuff. For example, I can show you a real model of our customer model. You don't understand anything, and it's very, very big, but that's our real object model that we have to deal with. And when I take one of these pieces, I'm not showing you because maybe I have right problems, but if I take a piece of this, I can really, I can talk with someone that maybe knows about the business rules, and he can explain me. I know a lot of things. I know the relations of things, and that's something I don't want to miss. And then then I can talk at least with someone who can explain me, okay, why is this relation or what? It's okay. Oh, thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirsten, and I work with VisualWorks most of the time. And I want to show you some things about the inspector that you may know, may not know. And I want to show you an extension to the inspector called Identity Inspector. And the problem that Identity Inspector solves is that it's sometimes you have two objects and you don't know, are these the same objects or are they just equal? And the way it does is it uses the identity hash to compute a little icon. And you can see one of these icons next to the name. I don't know what font it is, or what, it's not font, it's the writing system. I don't know which language it is, it works. So, and let me give you an example. Here we have a VisualWorks, and you can even see that. So this is the current window. And what you can see is, you can see the icons next to each of the instance variables. What you can also see is this little almost invisible kind of icon next to it. And you can see that the true and the true here, they use the same icon. It's hard to see on in this presentation, but if you're sitting in front of the computer, this really helps a little bit. Okay, something else. The window is part of the view hierarchy, and it may not be obvious, but you can even see this hierarchy in the inspector. You just need to use the Explore menu, component hierarchy, and you see it on top. And you can navigate the hierarchy just there and switch from one object to the other. And you can implement this for whatever data structure that you have. You can add this to your own code. Another thing that you see is down here, and I'm sure you already saw them. These are fields that are computed, and they are not instance variables. Like in this case, the bounding frame. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something, it's not an instance variable, it's computed. And also, these things can be added to any kind of object. And you can even have actions here. Yeah, like flash. Oh yeah. You see, the whole toolbar, because I got the toolbar here, the whole toolbar flashed. And these are actions that you can add to your objects to work with your objects in the inspector. It's super easy, you just need to add a couple of methods, or one method per action or one method per field. It's super easy. What you need to do is read the manual. There is a tools guide.pdf. Chapter 9 has a section on customizing the inspector. It's super easy, you should use it. And the most important thing when improving your experience with the inspector, implement print on. it's print on is the text that you see here on the right-hand side. And yeah, that's the first thing that you should do when you create a new object with instance variables that have some state. Just expose the state to the inspector by implementing print on. It's super easy and you should do it. Do I have time? Okay, I have more time. So next tool. There was a discussion on the mailing list about that pragmas are not really supported by tools. So there is GH pragma senders, an extension, a contribution in the next release. And you can use it to navigate pragmas more easily. Like here we have a method. Let's say in float. No, in limited precision rear. No, double. This is the stuff that you don't try at all. You see, the idea is, why do I have a method with pragmas? Windows spec. Windows spec. Okay, here we are. The source has a pragma called resource. So now you have senders, implementers, hierarchy senders, hierarchy implementers, all that stuff, but you also have pragma uses and pragma defines. So pragma uses is, show me all the methods that use the pragma resource. And I can choose between resource and resource column. Let's use this one. And you see a long list, so nothing new. That's more or less the same that you see with implementers. But definitions is the other thing. Where is a method that uses the resource pragma? And now it's only 3 methods. It's annotated method, resource type, and right, yeah. Okay, so that's the main idea, to find out where are the pragmas defined and used, and who else defines uses the pragma. Okay. Yes, I think that's it.
I will be quick. So I'm here to promote a documentation project that we started with Cyril, that was here before, which is named Faro Open Documentation. Basically, what it is a wiki that we started on GitHub. So we use GitHub to document some part of Faro that are for which there is no documentation or they are not well documented. And so we aim to provide a centralized source of information and pointers to existing documentation, so like that newcomers can enter more easily in the system. We also provide references to external library and some tips on workflows that we use inside Faro. The goal is to make this wiki easy to contribute. That's why we use GitHub, because on GitHub, as long as you have an account, you are able to edit the markdown files from the web application and to create a pull request, again, always staying on the web page. We also want to provide some migration guides between Faro versions, so we already have some of them. So I will quickly show you what it looks like, basically. So you have the main page of the wiki, which gathers section with the links to the pages. And so we already have some quite useful links according to the feedback we get from newcomers. For example, we have a page that explains how to deal with baselines. And I know that like people doing internship in Faro for the first time and stuff, and people like that really like this guide. We also have some documentation on the export format. We have a really nice page on how exception works, and we on this page we have a really nice illustration of the mechanism used by exception. I actually learned a lot of things by this page, so thanks Thomas for contributing. We have some documentation on how to sort collection, because in Faro there was the sort function which were introduced, which are a reification of a description of how to sort a collection, and it's like a lot of people do not know about it. And then we have some useful page, like for some people at least, how to support Chinese character and stuff like that in Faro. Okay, so in fact, Faro Open Documentation is an organization on GitHub, and additionally to the wiki, we provide Awesome Faro. So I don't know if some of you knows the Awesome list on GitHub. Those are a list of awesome stuff in, like, it can be on any topic, and there are a lot of those awesome lists on programming language. So this list aims to list awesome Faro projects, and they are categorized depending on their purpose. And anyone can add his project to the list. So like that, we have some kind of index of cool Faro projects. So I will show you quickly what it looks like. So this is not Awesome Faro. This is the main Awesome page. So there is like a meta Awesome repository that allows to list awesome repositories. So we would like soon to get Awesome Faro listed there, but we have to follow the contribution guide, which is quite hard to get everything right on the repository. And so we have Awesome Faro, and you can see here that we have a table of contents which allow people to discover awesome projects depending on the purpose of the project. And so we try to list, like, for example, myself, when I discover cool project, I usually do a pull request to add it, because I think it's really good to ease discovery of Faro projects. Okay, so all that happens on GitHub, and so your contributions are welcome if you can contribute to something, either on the wiki or on the awesome list. If you have really cool projects to list, put them on the awesome Faro. Thank you.
Hi. 2 years ago, I did a talk at ESUG about our application, and I just want to give you a little bit of a follow-up. There's some interesting things that have happened then. So our application is called Trax. It's an in-house CRP system that runs the business for the company. The company's HTS. And out of the 800 plus employees, about 550 or so use the application. And we have about 300 concurrent users at any given time. It's a Gemstone app developed in VisualWorks, so we deploy on that. Now, the interesting technical bit that I did the talk on 2 years ago was that we were eliminating the VisualWorks layer of the deployment. So originally we had Seaside deployed in VisualWorks, and VisualWorks would then talk to Gemstone. There'd be a bridge between those two for the data to come out. And we wanted to get more complex in our user interfaces and do some other stuff with Seaside. And in order to do that, the complexity of that bridge between the two was getting to be a problem. So that was in 2018, early 2018, we went beta with that and switched fully production updates in September of 2018. So it's been about a year that's been running, and it's been a really nice win for us. We've been able to double our concurrent user load without too much of a problem. GemTalk has been great in the support. We've had some interesting challenges because one of the things we had to do in order for that to work was to move PDF Talk to Gemstone. So that's Christian Nader's product. And he did a lot of work to make that happen. There was all kinds of challenges with how namespaces were originally used in the code base and how that ended up being translated to Gemstone with the symbol dictionaries and such. But I can tell you, after we went into production, the only time I had to give Christian a call was when we were adding fonts in order to allow us to print checks from our system. And since then, we haven't had any issues with it at all. So technically, that's worked out really well. Our development team now is 8 people. So we're out of Toronto, and kind of proud that we're able to say that, you know, here's a production system, an in-house ERP production system that went live in 2015, brand new development, continuing development. We're now adding a parts and warehouse component. We're adding some CRM components. There's a long-term commitment to keep building this out. So it's a nice business Smalltalk success story that I'm glad we're able to talk about. On the staffing side, if you get into the business side of having to have small talk in your application, staffing is one of the things you have to deal with. And we've had some interesting experiences with that. We've hired both experienced small talkers. So some of you know Reg Kroc, he's on our team, Jerry Kott's on our team, Tom Dureski, Yanni Chu, some of the names that we've hired. And those are all experienced people. We've also been backfilling with brand new hires that are brand new from graduates from university, don't know the first thing about small talk. We train them, we bring them up to speed, and those have been working out well as well. But it's been an interesting experience in comparing what it takes to learn the technology versus what it takes to learn the domain. And it turns out, the technology, people are smart, they pick it up, and after a bit, they start to like it, and then after a bit, they start complaining about the other environments they used to program in, and that's a nice win. But the domain, the reason we have an in-house application is because of the complexity of the domain. We're finding that takes a lot longer to learn, and that's where the long-term, invest in several years of building people up. That's the win that we get is for that part of the application. So technically, it's been going great. Really happy to see it happen. We also run the Toronto Smalltalk user group. So if you guys are ever passing through, check out smalltalk.ca. That's where the schedule is. If you're ever in the area and we happen to have a meeting, please come and join us. And one final thing for the open source part of it, those of you that contribute to Seaside, we are really dependent on Seaside for our application. So I just want to say thank you for putting the time and effort in for that open source work. Very much appreciate it.
Okay. This is, my name is Norbert Hartl. This is a pet project I call FaroVerse because I had some incident with playing with the Faro. Usually we know, or we go to GitHub and we know which projects we want to load. But one day I just gave Faro Launcher a thing that it's something should make easy for new users to load Faro. So you check out the launcher, Faro version, click, download, starts. Should be easy. But then inside the image, I opened something like the software catalog. And I couldn't find that much things, actually things I was really missing. And it dragged down to the mode how you add stuff to the software catalog. And then I'm just saying, I don't think this is going anywhere because, so I don't want to publish stuff because it's not the right tool. And then I came up, so how about searching the internet for software projects? And as a second point is always that I fight with dependencies. Metacella is a great tool, but you always know if you use projects that use different versions of a sub-project, then it's always hardcore to load it just. So this is FaroVerse, so it looks more like a star map because you look at the sky, it looks more or less pretty, but you don't figure out much. So you can try looking around, looking for the answer or anything, but in the end, it does not help. You say your eyes are not good enough. So I need a tool, so maybe classes. And then you recognize, you read a lot, and you see I see patterns in here. So, and then you make your tool, and one day I just say, I can look into FaroVerse. And I call this the Seaside constellation. So, thanks. What you can see here is so there's Seaside 3, that's the project name. It has green lines to the version it supports, and the yellow lines are the dependencies of this version. So we have a mesh of versions of software that depend on other versions on other software. We can just focus on another project to see another constellation. I call it the XML parser constellation. And in the end, yeah. So in the end, you can even have another demo like padding. Yeah. So
what I did is actually now the model is just a scanner for it starts multiple Faro images, Faro 7, Faro 8. It analyzes the baseline and configurations for that version, produces a little model and puts that all together in a kind of a database. And the plan for this is, because this is, for me, it's already better than the catalog because it's roughly 600 projects. Ooh, that's good. And for me, if I make it for Faro 8, the plan would be to provide a REST server, so the lucky package, just the company I work for might provide just a server, and I want to have an active scanner that even figures out new versions. And maybe there's stuff I want to add lint rules and stuff, so we can load packages and we can add some kind of quality factors. So in the end, the ultimate goal will be the Faro ecosystem, because we don't talk enough about this, but yeah. So I think every good project deserves something like a proper software catalog where people can find what they like to do. Thank you very much.
So 4 projects in 7 minutes, 14% of battery. So first thing, I did this over the weekend. The idea was to see if I could actually render the entire Faro world inside a window, but only directly to Athens without using an intermediate form. So I am actually debugging it. So the red squares, like these, I am painting the invalidated parts. So it's ugly, but I am debugging it. It's just a weekend stuff, but it's doable. Now, second one. Paulo said me, no, you cannot do it. So no, that's not true. I was saying, it's here. I'm sorry. I lost my playground. It's in this screen. Where is my cursor? Here. So then I can do this. Can I do this? Yes. So the idea was to say, okay, I want to pop out windows out of the world. It kind of relates to the other thing, but the idea is, okay, people that don't want to go to native windows, but still want to, and now I'm getting my Calypso from here. Up. So this is an intermediate step between actually the real native windows and something there. So that is still a weekend stuff. So it requires a lot of more work actually to make it real, but okay. Next thing, so I still have battery, that's okay. Here, okay. At work, we are actually starting to write tests for the VM. So one of the things that I was looking at is, okay, how can I actually simulate the JIT code? The VM already had some solutions to simulate Intel 32 and 64 bits, ARM 32, but the thing is that forgoing ARM 64 and some other stuff actually was not so easy. So I found this library that is called Unicorn, which is actually built on top of Qemu, and actually what you can do is to simulate native code. So it's super easy. It's a couple of functions. I made some bindings, and like that, I could write tests on the JIT compiler with that. Yay! Next to it, the other thing that I did is, okay, when you're touching native code, you want to actually decompile, and I made bindings to the LLVM disassembler like that. I have only one way to disassemble native code for all the different platforms, so I can get a disassembler for Intel 32 bits or for ARM or whatever else. So this is actually super funny. I think that there is other people that actually would like to use this. So it's super easy. It's a couple of functions, so, and it's open source and it's there. So get it and use it. That's all.